So I like to engage with the world through my family, my friends. I like spending time in good company. Um, the work we do is really challenging, so having time to just relax and chat and very low key is really nice. I also recently did a 10K, ran the first 4 miles, and then had to do a little bit of walking and jogging toward the end because I have not been steady with my exercise, but I do enjoy running. That is another way that I engage, and it's become increasingly more challenging to be consistent. So that's an area that I intend to grow and develop in or return to in a better way.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Christina Kishimoto, and you are with us under the Flamboyan. With us today is Dr. Susana Reyes, Superintendent of the Shoreline Public Schools. Hello, Susana, and welcome.
Hello, thank you. Happy to be here.
I'm so excited for you to be here. I think before we start talking about what it's like to kick off another school year, how was your summer? Did you do anything exciting?
My summer was really nice in terms of good weather and time with family. We have been busy actually in the school district, though, as you may be aware, a lot of districts are facing some fiscal situations. And in our state, our legislature allowed districts to run special supplemental levies. So we actually ran a supplemental levy, and election day was August 5th. So I had the first 2 weeks of July where I could relax, and then later in, mid-July through that time, we were busy making sure that we were sharing information important to our voters about that supplemental levy, and we're excited that it passed. So that was exciting. So
So,
yeah, it
so,
was.
so typical of a response from a superintendent. The summer is never long enough. Your
No,
vacation is not long enough. And you're here starting the new school year. The whole nation is back at school. And
right.
there's so much now, that just goes, right? But I will say that I spent a couple of days up on Mount Hood hiking with my daughter who turned 25, and we had a great time. And we have to like take care of ourselves, take care of our family, be with the people we love, and take a break sometimes because the work that you do and superintendents do across our nation as the school year starts, there just is no slowdown to it, is there?
Right. Exactly.
It's
That's
it's just
that's
so busy, right? So I'm wondering, superintendency, this is, I did three superintendencies myself. I know what this work is like. I know how exhausting it is, but it's incredibly rewarding as well. And I'm wondering what led you to the superintendency. Are there points in your career path where doors open in a way that made you think, hey, I'm going to be a superintendent. I'm going to lead a public school in this nation?
Yeah, that's a great question. And for me, it's exactly what you just said. Doors opened that I didn't know existed. There were moments in time that sit with me, and I still think about, that led me to see myself in a leader role in and of itself. I have a friend who was a school principal, and she's Latina, and I didn't know her at all when I learned she was a school principal. I was, at the time, I was taking a break from college and trying to figure out what am I going to do with my life? Where am I going to go? What to do? And I was working in a school my title at the time was a clerk typist. And so this person walks in one day, and I wondered, like, who is this person? And she seemed like in charge of the world, and I'm like, oh, I want to know who she is. And I learned she was one of the principals in the district that I was working in. And right, the first thing that came to my mind was, wow, I can do that. And it was primarily because I felt like I could identify with her, as a Latina. Literally, that's what I thought. If she can do it, I can do it. Like that is something I could do because I've always been the kind of person that likes to support, and lead, but in a really supportive, like I want to help. Like that's really my mission in life is to be as helpful as I can. And I thought that would be a really great way for me to possibly explore a future career. So that led to going back to school and getting my teaching degree. And then right away deciding to do my master's and then working on an internship in my third year of teaching so that I was ready in case a job opened up for me to be a principal. And one did. I was asked to be the assistant principal in my school district where I actually was raised in Wapato, Washington, my beautiful Wapato. Wapato Wolves is our high school, and I got to be an assistant principal there. And then after that, already set a goal for myself. When I finished my master's, I realized then I can get my doctorate. Like, why not? And so I had set a goal for myself to achieve and complete my doctorate before or by the age of 35. And so then I was assistant principal and I thought, oh, I got to get working on that because, I was already like 30 or something like that, 31. And so I became a principal across the street. And then so my second year of principalship, I decided to start working on my doctorate. And through connecting with my professors, I learned that I could do my doctorate and the superintendent's credential at the same time. And I thought, oh, superintendent? Like, really? Hmm, I think I would enjoy that maybe. And what better way to learn about it than through a cohort and a course, path. And so I was getting my doctorate anyway. So I signed up for the superintendent's credential program, through which the courses also applied to the doctorate. So I was sort of doing two things at once, and I learned a ton about the superintendency. And as I begin learning more about how really the work is about coming together as a community to support our individual students in every single classroom in our school, I thought that was just like the most amazing thing to be able to aspire to. And that's what led me to on this path toward the superintendency. It took me a while to actually get the position. This is my first superintendency and I am loving it.
But you're
Uh,
starting your fifth year.
I am. I'm starting my fifth year, and I would say, hands down, this is the best job in the world.
I
And
agree with you. And I love where you started. I think for women of color, uh, we don't have a lot of role models in the superintendency. We are still underrepresented in this nation, even though it has increased slightly.
Mhm,
And you started out by saying, I saw this Latina principal and I wanted to know immediately, who is she? She has some power, she has some confidence, she's a leader, obviously, and you wanted to know who she was. And our young ladies in school, uh, our children are watching us as adults. They want to see themselves, they want to see representation. And how important is it
mhm,
that people like us pursue this despite what was, a long road, difficult roads, but
mhm.
the impact that we have on others who say, oh, I can do that too. If she can do that, I can do that. And I think that origin story you shared about your pathway is really incredibly powerful. So I thank you for sharing that.
You're
The
welcome.
the other piece I want to talk to you about is, when we come into this role of the superintendency, we are driven by the things that you said, impacting students,
Mhm,
ensuring we have great schools for our nation's students, impacting lives and communities, right? Creating educational centers of excellence. But there's so much that happens outside of the immediate work that we're leading that impacts our work. And one of those areas is public policy at the federal level and politics at the federal level. And we know there's been a lot of changes in the last few months, including under additional underfunding, right?
Right.
Of public education and changes in policy. And I'm wondering, as you reflect back on the last school year, you barely had time to take a break this summer, but as you reflect back on the last school year, were there surprises in terms of you found yourself working on some issues or policies that you did not expect to be kind of front and center in terms of where you were spending your time?
Right. I think, for our school district, and I know districts, everywhere, one of the issues that came up for us early on in the calendar year was around supporting our families who come from different countries. And we did work on some actual policy work to strengthen the language in our policies to ensure that we were doing everything that we could, that, in our power to ensure and reassure our families that they were welcome and safe in our schools, supporting our staff with questions that were coming up for them, and how do we respond when something might occur on campus where somebody may want access to a student and things like that. And so we actually did some policy, I would say, revisions to ensure that the language was clear, that it was as strong as it could be within all the legal parameters, and then communicating that not only with our staff, but with our families, and ensuring that they were made aware that our schools are a haven for them, a place for their children to come and learn and grow and establish friendships and work through all the learning that really we're uh, that is incumbent upon us to do for them. And
Yeah.
so I think that is an area that we weren't sure that would play out the way it did, and it has. And so I think that's still on our mind, obviously.
One thing we know is that superintendents have to be incredibly flexible
Mhm.
with agendas that are planned, right? The work that you do with your board and your community and your teachers and principals, and unplanned, right? Things that happen in community or things that are happening at the federal level with the example that you provided. We also know that superintendents and boards of education have a lot of pressure for a wide scope of areas, right? So what's happening federally with immigration to what's happening in the classroom, whether a child is learning, right, can read, can engage in the other important and critical content areas, right? That everything in between lands on the shoulders of public school leaders. And so how do you keep yourself kind of grounded and focused? You don't have the resources or the money to cover everything that often is on the shoulders of leaders in public ed. And yet you do this work because you want to ensure that there are great schools and great classrooms for every child. And so how do you keep yourself grounded and focused on what you can accomplish and how to accomplish that mission?
Yeah, I think, for us in our system, one of the things that we've done over the last couple of years, especially because we've been facing what I would describe as a budget emergency or a budget crisis, where you're operating on a very, very thin margin in terms of your operating dollars, not let alone any extra funds, right? You just want to be able to pay your bills and not get yourself in a situation where here in the state of Washington would be is called binding conditions, where you're in the red,
Right.
not being able to balance your budget and having to borrow from yourself. We've been working through that journey since really my first year here in Shoreline. And um, there's a lot of factors that play into that, including COVID and just a number of different things that has us where we are right now. And we've been struggling through that. So one of the things we did a couple of years ago now is our team, our leadership team here at the district office, led an effort collaboratively with our staff, our students, and our community to really get clear on our strategic plan. And so we had an instructional strategic plan, but we wanted to be much more focused and really establish some clear targets that we could focus our energy on, and not and be clear enough where we weren't also doing a lot of additional things, right? Where we were focusing on the most important things. And so last year, we launched our what we call the Envision Shoreline Strategic Plan, and it includes two key areas of focus. One is every student is literate, every student can read at their grade level. And the other one is related to every student thriving, where they feel safe and welcome in their schools. All of this on the foundation of multi-tiered systems of support, which we know is a research-based framework that includes interventions for all areas of a student's wholeness, right? Social, emotional, as well as academic. And so that has really helped us focus, even in the midst of all these constraints. And so we're doing some very strong work in the area of literacy. We're engaging. Today, I visited a few schools where teachers are working together and collaborating around how do we respond to the needs of our students when some of the emotional ways in which they're responding to their experiences may not be the most productive or the most positive. How can we help them, right? Because our students are facing a lot out in our
Yeah.
world right now. Everything is at their fingertips. There is no, just being at home with no access to anything. Like they have access to everything. And so that has helped us, I think, really stay focused as well as feel like we can still make a difference even when there's constraints. And our staff has been incredible in that work. The other thing for me personally, as a superintendent, working through a lot of challenges over the last, few years related to our budget, but also related to just all the socio-political, things that are happening in the world right now. Um, I get out into the schools. I go out and I visit classrooms. I visit with our staff. I visit with our families. I attending events. All of that fills really fills my bucket, and I get to see that even in when all this other noise is, happening around us, our staff are doing incredible work with our children, and our children are happy. They're experiencing joy in their learning. Um, and I feel like, okay, we're doing, people are okay because sometimes it can feel scary,
Yeah.
it's like, what's going to happen, but you get out there and you see all of this, and that is what grounds me the most. And it's the best part of the work. And so
That
trying to balance.
intentionality that you are
Mhm.
speaking about, we can't do it all. There's a
Right,
lot of pressure to do it all, but staying intentionally like strategic and focused and accomplishing things at a high level, making sure everyone is on the same page, moving in the same direction is
right,
critical. And then there's the humanity side of it, like getting out into schools that you just
right,
spoke about. And that's really important, not only for kids to see that their leader is out amongst them and excited about their learning and what they're learning, but that the educators and the staff that support schools and
right,
are really the backbone and design of schools and of the learning environment, that they see you and that they see the prioritization, right, of what's happening in classrooms in the learning space. That's an incredible motto. It sounds super simple in the way I put it, but it's really difficult to work in that way when there's so much coming at leaders, whether it's yourself as a superintendent or principals who are constantly being pulled into lots of spaces and
right.
away from classrooms.
Mhm.
And so I really applaud the way you speak about that intentionality.
Yeah. And it is simple, you know, and it's making that time. And even if something you got to get to, you can get to it later if it's not an emergency in this moment. And so,
So
like,
I'm wondering, as the school year, gets going here and we get through September, we know that it is like a runaway train. It just keeps
oh yeah.
going, right? So there's a wonderful momentum about it, but it
Mhm.
also starts to feel like it gets faster and faster and faster. And so how
Mhm.
do you, or what do you want to most focus on this year as you think about your priorities? As the superintendent, what is your most important kind of goal in terms of where you want to have impact?
Mhm. I think, sticking with the work that we're doing on continuing to launch and implement our strategic plan, I really do think that that's where the key is in our work. I want to see um, that work gain even more momentum. For example, with our multi-tiered systems of support framework development, that's a process it takes a long time. It's a 3 to 5 year or more sort of process to really get it in place. But our team has done a great job of setting up some pilot work in a few of our schools. So I'm really excited about that. And I was in one of the sessions this afternoon, and there's engagement on the part of our staff to really understand what that framework can do when we can develop it in a way that can be implemented with fidelity, where we're all using the same language, where we're all on the same page, and approaching it in a very structured, focused manner. So I think that is an area that I think about, that I'm excited, because you never know where a strategic plan may go once you develop it, right?
That's
And
right.
we don't want it to sit on the shelf, right? We want it to be who we are about. And I think the piece of the part of that I really feel really good about our strategic plan is that it is kind of simple, right? Like every
Mhm.
student, we want every student to read at grade level. We want every student thriving, and we want to have a foundation that can help us make that happen. Ultimately, where 95% or more of our students are graduating on time, 95% or more of our students are reading at grade level, and 95% or more of our students are feeling safe and welcome in their schools. Like that's where we're headed, and really gaining momentum in that work would be where I would say I'm excited about that. And I love how our team has really come together around that, and our community um, uh, know about the strategic plan. Like I do get questions about it. People reference it when they're sharing information with us, or they're asking questions, um, and so I think that would be how I would think about my work this year.
Yeah,
And then
so
everything
keep
else.
be intentional, keep it simple, stay focused,
Yeah.
and bring joy to kids and have a
Mhm.
joyful environment for all of the players in that environment, your
Right.
staff and teachers and principals and parents and so forth. So great message. It's just to the point, right? Like this is our lift. And
Mhm.
I think that's an important message. So before or as we wrap up, we have a lot of women that I've been talking to since the conference that we have every summer, the One Women Lead Conference, where we talk about, have you thought about being superintendent, right? Pulling others along. Do you have a message for our aspiring superintendents who are looking at you leading and saying and wondering, should I pursue that? Is that something that I can do? What's your advice for aspiring superintendents?
I would say absolutely. Um, I think it is so critical for our young women to see us in this role. And it makes a huge difference. And I understand, there's different viewpoints on representation, on how that makes a difference and whatnot. But I do think it's important, and if we have fellow colleagues out in the field who are considering this, I would say don't even give it a second thought and go for it. Because not only is it critical, but I would say that, and I said it earlier, it's the best job in the world. Even as difficult as it can be, with all the challenges as we know we're all facing, there is no better job, I think. And I really, really feel passionate about that. I think the field of education is really special. Like we get to work with children and young people that we can help, you know, that is an incredible gift. And if there's this fire, or this desire to impact the system in a kind of a different or better or bigger way, and people are wonder about it, I would say don't wonder, just go for it, because it really is. And I do believe that when people are in this role, they love it. It's really, really, I would say a wonderful place to be.
I actually absolutely agree with you. I love the way the role of the superintendent allows you to come across the lives of so many people, and we are impacted tremendously by them, and get to be part of each other's lives in ways that you just can't be in other roles. And so it is a very fulfilling role. Dr. Susana Reyes, thank you for sharing
You're
part
welcome.
of your story with us today. I wish you a wonderful 2025-26 school year. And I know you and I are going to be doing a session at the Washington Alas coming up on
Yes.
cultural responsive leadership. And I am excited to continue to work with you. So, a la orden.
Yeah, muchas gracias. And thank you so much for the opportunity to share a few words. And yeah, and have a great year as well. And we'll see you soon.
Thank you for joining us today under the Flamboyant.